room and what are the sources of heat that we need to remove, then we'll calculate a worked example with work. A cold room is used to store perishable goods such as meat and vegetables to slow down their deterioration and preserve them as fresh as possible for as long as possible. Heat accelerates their deterioration, so we need to cool down the food by removing the heat. And to remove the heat, we use a refrigeration system, as this allows us to accurately and automatically control the temperature to preserve the goods for as long as possible. So where does the heat come from that we need to remove? Well, typically 5 to 15% is through transmission loads. This is the thermal energy transferred through the roof, the walls and the floor into the cold room. Now, heat always flows from hot to cold, and the interior of the cold room is obviously a lot colder than its surroundings. So heat is always trying to enter the space because of that temperature difference. If the cold store is exposed to direct sunlight, then the heat transfer will be higher, so an additional correction will need to be applied to allow for this. Then we have product loads, which account for typically 55 to 75% of the cooling load. This accounts for the heat that is introduced into the cold room when new products enter. It's also the energy required to cool, freeze and further cool after freezing. If you're just cooling the products, then you only need to consider the sensible heat load. But if you're freezing, then you need to account for the latent heat also, as a phase change occurs. So there is energy used, but you will not see a temperature change while the product changes between a state of liquid and ice. Then there is an additional energy required to further chill this food down below the freezing point, which is again a sensible heat load. You also need to account for the packaging, as this will inherently be cooled also. Lastly, if you're cooling fruit and vegetables, then these products are alive and they will generate some heat, so you need to account for the removal of this also. The next thing to consider is the internal loads, which account for around 10 to 20%. Now, this is the heat given off by people working in the cold room, as well as the lighting and equipment such as forklift trucks, etc. So for this, you'll need to consider what equipment will be used by the